Chris Cornell was, in my opinion, one of the most naturally gifted rock singers ever to live. Although he is widely regarded as one of the founding members of the Seattle Grunge movement, he was a force of nature that couldn't be neatly placed into any genre and had a wide range of influences. His work was interesting, bold, technically brilliant, but heartfelt. How did he achieve this? What made Chris Cornell great? Chris Cornell had an incredible 4-octave range. Now, although he was technically a baritone, because of his lower range and because of his warmth of tone, he had an outstanding, well-produced high mix that went right up into the tenor range, if not higher, that still maintained that warmth. To understand how incredible Chris Cornell's range is, let's look at the average baritone male voice. The average baritone has a range of 1.4 to 2 octaves, so let's say around an F2 to a D4. A trained baritone has an average range of 1.7 to 2.4 octaves, so around an F2 to G4, or with an extreme of perhaps an A4. Chris's range was C-sharp 2 to a reliable full-voiced A5. What's more, he could sing this in both a head voice and a mighty mix, which, to be quite frank, I would struggle with as a soprano, and he was a baritone. In this clip, you can hear Chris's A5 from early on in his career, and yes, it is a mixed voice. And he could, of course, sing in a light falsetto voice. And his warm baritone lows. One of these clips is actually from Jesus Christ Poses, which you also heard his highest note in.
It went do 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 do, like every other song.
Chris's range did change throughout the years, and there are some rumors that he had vocal surgery. I wouldn't be surprised if this is true due to his lifestyle and extreme singing style, especially in the early days. Now, a loss of range is normal as we age. However, Chris did push his body and his voice to its limits. But that didn't stop him making some of the best music that he ever did. As time has moved on, I have less range and less ability to easily go in and out of different registers. But I feel like I have a much better ability to emotionally connect with any song. I definitely agree with this. Although the energy, power, and range of his early days is awe-inspiring, I personally love the warmth and emotion that he grew into. Now, this is my favourite performance of Chris's, When I'm Down, live at the Troubadour. If you saw my reaction to it, I cried. It certainly pulls at the heartstrings.
All the time. All the time.
Chris also has a really great understanding of distortion and how to use them to make it sound like he's singing higher than he actually is. Now, distortions don't have pitch, and I know this sounds a little strange, but bear with me. So if you look at this spectrogram recording, you can see the harmonics of the voice. The lowest line is the pitch, or to be fancy, the fundamental frequency, and the lines on top are the harmonics. Now, if I do a false chord scream, let's have a go. You'll see there's not really any lines there, it's just a big mess of noise, there's no fundamental frequency. Our ears don't really know where to perceive it, but will estimate the pitch to be somewhere within that range. Now let's do a higher fry scream. Rah, rah. This is perceived as higher because that mess of noise covers a higher range. Now what if I want to make a note sound higher than it actually is? So let's pick a note. Ah. Okay, so that bottom line is the note. Ah. I'm going to add some fry in. Ah. Ah, excuse the horrible noises. Ah, you can see that there's a lot more mess of noise above that fundamental frequency, which makes some people perceive the note as higher than it actually is, even though it technically, scientifically isn't. But we still perceive it that way. Now please excuse all the silly noises I just made. I can no way do distortions as well as Chris Cornell, but he did use that fry technique to help him get up to what can be perceived as kind of a whistle note, although it technically is distortion. Contrary to most grunge singers who had high, light tenor voices, Chris had that warm baritone voice that could rise up into the tenor range with ease and power and maintain that baritone warmth. When he was younger, his voice had this thick, honey texture with outstanding clarity and ease at the top of his range, and he could switch really quickly between registers, meaning that he had access to a vast array of textures in his voice. And he could pick and choose when he wanted to use distortion. As he aged, his voice took on a slightly more husky, breathy edge throughout the entirety of his range. Now in this clip, you can see that his neck is tensing a little bit as he tries to reach those higher notes. It's a little bit harder work for him than it used to be. To me, this does point to some vocal damage, as a long-term husky voice is normally the result of chronically swollen vocal cords. Now, vocal damage would have almost certainly been caused by his lifestyle and a grueling schedule. However, I have to say that his voice didn't really gain this texture to the 2010s, and this is a credit to his great technique and breath support. When his voice did change, he adapted to this new voice fantastically, and I personally love his work from his later years. Although, word of warning, if you do want this voice, vocal damage isn't really the way to go. You will have to deal with loss of control, loss of ability to move through registers, and loss of range, and not many of us are as genius as Chris Cornell at adapting. Although Chris had never had a singing lesson, he was incredibly intuitive at listening to his voice and was able to teach himself. You can really hear his progression as he practiced and learned between his singing in 1988 and 1991. This is one of the most important notes I think a singing student can take on about their voice. It's listening to your body and how your voice feels. If it feels good, you've got it right. If it feels like hard work, then you might need to adapt something. And I think Chris was excellent at listening to his body and understanding how the voice should feel in the body. This is something most people have to work on with a coach, but Chris did it intuitively. Now, although his music had punch, apart from in some live performances, his default wasn't to push too much, and he had excellent breath support. In short, it meant his breathing was relaxed. He didn't force out too much air or too little air when achieving a note. This allowed him to move seamlessly through the registers, maintain his beautiful tone, and use the entirety of his range, and protect his voice while singing extreme vocals. Now, there was one other thing that helped him protect his voice. It was the way that he naturally got onto a note. There are 3 ways that you can get onto a note. Number 1, a breathy onset. Ah, the breath starts before the note. Number 2, a glottal onset. Ah, you push your vocal cords hard together, let the air build up behind them, and then kind of pop them open. Number 3, a simultaneous onset. Ah, the note and the breath start at the same time. Simultaneous onsets are the least wearing on the voice, but they require really good breath support and a really gentle start to each note, so that can take a little bit of training, especially if you're singing really energetic rock songs. The other onsets aren't necessarily bad if used as a stylistic nuance, but the problems slip in when those become the default rather than emotional expression, especially if they're combined with excessive air pressure. So, your ideal for vocal health is to use simultaneous onsets with enough but not too much air pressure, and the other onsets used sparingly for emotional expression. And that's precisely what Chris Cornell did. So in this clip, you can hear a really gentle glottal onset on the first all, and then on the second all he's using a lovely simultaneous onset. So in the first he wants to add a little bit more punch while he's in the lower part of his range, but he doesn't need that in the higher part of his range. Resonance comes hand in hand with breath support, and Chris generally uses resonance to boost his sound rather than pushing too much. He understood that if he shaped his vocal tract in different ways, which is the tube above the voice box and the mouth, he could create different tones and perceived volumes. He could shift between twang, nasality, and darker, warmer sounds quickly and easily, shifting his voice's tonal quality to create a musical and emotional picture, sometimes adding compression to add a more direct sound. He had an innate understanding of how to shape his vocal tract to create a vast array of tonal qualities. And here is Chris showcasing all those tonal qualities in I Will Always Love You. The idea of shaping the vocal tract also shows in how Chris uses vowels to produce the different tones, attack, and resonance he wishes. His vowels are generally open with what sounds like a neutral or low larynx, a relaxed tongue for the main part, raised soft palate, and a relaxed jaw. Listen to how he changes the vowel on me to May and Say Hello to Heaven to reach that high note and give a big open free sound. He spends significantly more time singing on the vowel than on the consonant, especially opening up as he gets to that higher mixed voice. When producing his incredible mix, his technique is generally on point, with breath support, larynx, tongue, jaw, and soft palate working together in a lovely, relaxed way. However, he breaks the rules and plays around with some of these elements in his chest voice, allowing them to drop to add to the emotion of a song. Sometimes closing the vowel, barely opening his mouth, singing through his teeth, and playing with the feeling of freedom and tension from different jaw positions. You can see that in this fabulous performance of Nothing Compares to You. You'll also notice that his consonants are really soft, giving his voice this rolling, uninterrupted feeling.
It's been 7 hours and 15 days since you took your love away.
In his early days, Chris Cornell did something really interesting with tongue tension / positioning in his lower range. He's using his tongue to push down his larynx, and you can really hear that on his sound here. This is actually something that happened all the time stylistically in the grunge movement. Eddie Vedder did it a lot.
As the earth to the sun, yeah, now the air I tasted and breathed.
But it's not something that everyone can do, especially if you want to hit high notes easily. Personally, I find if I have any tension in my tongue, even in the lower range, it makes it much more difficult for me to hit those high notes. But Chris Cornell seemed to be able to put it on and take it off reasonably easily. And you can really hear that in this clip, where on the word behind, he's using that tongue positioning and then he's releasing it for freedom in the higher notes later on. But this sound is even more interesting. This is a technique used in polyphonic overtone singing, where you're using that tongue positioning to create two notes at once. So check out this amazing MRI scan of a singer called Anne-Marie Hefele, who is an expert in this technique. If you listen to that original clip we played again, you can hear that Chris is doing just this. He's singing two notes at once. However, as he got older, Chris tended to drop this technique and developed more ease in his lower range.
Rescued from the flame, that is all I would ever need.
Now, I'm about to say something a little controversial about Chris's technique. Although his technique was generally excellent, his pitching wasn't always perfect, especially when he was dealing with addiction. But I kind of find that refreshing in a time where everything is auto-tuned to perfection. You could hear the slides, the cracks, the pitch wobbles, and the humanity in his voice. And at the end of the day, his aim wasn't technique, but connection. And nor should anyone's aim be technique. His natural technique was there to aid him as a tool to help him connect with audiences in a healthy way.
Imagine all the people living life in peace.
I've been chatting away about Chris's technique, and Chris did have an excellent technical voice, but what really made him great is how he made us feel. Now, as I always say with great artists, there are always something about that emotional connection that can't be explained. But there are also elements that can be. So what are the tools that Chris Cornell used to make him stand above other singers? To lead the way to talking about Distortion, let's kick off with this phenomenal performance. Chris Cornell generally sings with what sounds like a healthy distortion. He's able to put on that distortion and take it off at will, adding a grittier edge to some of those belted notes. When our vocal cords are vibrating in regular waves, we hear that as a clean noise. When something gets in the way of those regular waves, disrupts them and makes them irregular, we get distortion or noise. That's a beautiful distortion from me. Now, it's impossible to tell without a larynoscopy of Chris while singing, but there could be a couple of different distortions that he was using. He almost certainly was partially using false chord or vestibular fold distortion, but he also could have been using a hybrid of fry and false chord. Now, the false vocal cords are folds of ligament and mucous membrane that lie above the vocal cords, and whose main job is to protect the vocal cords. When they get in the way of the airflow and vibrations from the vocal cords and disrupt it, you get distortion. The science around extreme vocals is still really new, and there's still loads to be learned, but some recent research suggests that some distortions can happen at the vocal cord level in fry distortion, with small parts of the vocal cords themselves moving aperiodically. Chris could have been doing a combination of fry and false chord distortion. However, what really matters is that he had control of this distortion and it didn't come from neck tension or excessive air pressure. Unlike many of the other grunge singers whose singing style was mostly rooted in punk, Chris Cornell took a lot of his influences from blues, and even covered one of Howlin' Wolf's songs, Smokestack Lightning. Chris used many blues techniques, sliding between notes and pitch bending rather than hitting them dead on, so ah rather than ah. Using riffs and runs on pentatonic scales like hey, or on blues scales, hey. Singing clashing blues notes to add tension, and of course his rasp and distortion. Although his voice was hugely versatile, he carried these nuances through his genre-defying repertoire. Chris Cornell is an excellent all-round musician. He actually started out as a drummer, and this comes across as his rhythm is excellent. Much like the rest of his voice, he has a solid sense of rhythm, but he also knows when to break the rules, sometimes sitting behind the beat or adding more conversational rhythms in, like in blues music. His sense of rhythm also comes out in his time signatures in his songwriting, using unusual time signatures like 7/4. Now, although some of these musical choices might seem unusual, they are always emotionally intentional. In this case, it adds a feeling of unease. This theme also extends to his guitar playing, sometimes using unusual open chords and key changes, but always playing with a solid technical bass. Aside from being a fantastic solo artist and lead singer of 3 bands, Chris was someone who was able to take his trauma and pain and change it into something that helped people around the world, his music. But it also went beyond his music. I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time to make a career doing something I love. I'm in a fortunate position to use music to support important causes to help foster change. Chris started a foundation with his wife Vicky to support children facing homelessness, poverty, abuse and neglect. He used his platform to shine a light on the Armenian genocide. And he spoke out against the glorification of drug use, telling interviewers that we don't talk enough about the ordinary people who die every day from overdosing. It's a shame that famous people get all the focus, because then it gets glorified a little bit. Like, this person was too sensitive for the world, and a light twice as bright lives half as long. It's not true. Chris was not just a great singer, but he was someone who wanted to make the world a better place, to help people through music and beyond, and to turn trauma into a catalyst for change. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do like and subscribe. If you like these episodes, please do thank my patrons. If it wasn't for the patrons, these would not be happening. And if you would like to check out my Patreon, head over to patreon.com/BethRoars. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Down.